Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Port Commissioner Toshiko Hasegawa. I have the great fortune of serving as the Port of Seattle Commission President. I want to thank you all for being here today, and especially I want to acknowledge the folks who are standing with me. They represent a diverse coalition of over 70 organizations and tens of thousands of jobs made possible by our unique and irreplaceable industrial lands. I also want to thank Councilmember Kettle for joining us today and for his leadership in supporting maritime and industrial lands. We appreciate him working to get our coalition a seat at the table on Monday. We're gathered for the third time to ask the committee to reject President Nelson's proposed legislation that threatens our working waterfront and puts housing in direct conflict with vital industries. This is more than an economic justice issue. This is about environmental and housing justice, and it's a safety issue. Let's be clear about what this legislation does. It eliminates the critical 200-foot buffer between residents and our primary heavy haul corridor. It's a carve-out for a specific property that would benefit a single out-of-state billionaire, undermining our collective goals for a healthy economy, environment, and quality of life for all of our residents. And it renegotiates a years-long agreement between dozens of parties to the benefit of just one party. And perhaps most disturbingly, it puts pedestrians' physical safety in jeopardy as it places them in direct conflict with freight and trains. We all agree our city has significant needs that we must work together to address, but this is not the solution. It's reckless urban planning. Smart urban planning is about improving services, sustainability, and a quality of life for our residents. And we can do that by finding compromise and working with industry, investing in the diverse economy that makes Seattle strong. It's about creating spaces to thrive together, not at the expense of one another. The Port is proud to have supported makers organizations, including a current contract with the Seattle Made, by investing in their success. Across Seattle, there are spaces available now for makers, and we would love to keep working with them. The Port currently has almost 500,000 square feet of light industrial space in the design phase, and more is coming soon for those that are looking for space. We continue to look for partnership opportunities with makers and other small manufacturers across neighborhoods all over the city. Small business manufacturing can and does coexist with housing across Seattle, but maritime and industrial operations only happen right here at our waterfront. We have to play to our unique strengths, and that's how we lead the way. And we are leading the way, as Seattle does best, by embracing our values, supporting our maritime economy, advancing decarbonization, and pushing for a global transition to a green economy. Now, I'm honored to introduce several leaders from our coalition who will speak to the critical importance of preserving these lands for their industries and how this contributes to a stronger, more sustainable economy for all. So please first welcome our labor partners from ILWU.
Hi, my name is Vekich. I was born and raised in Washington State. My dad was a longshoreman at the Port of Grace Harbor, which exported mainly logs. I followed in his footsteps on the docks in Seattle, where I have lived and worked for more than 2 decades, mostly in District 1. I'm a 4th-generation International Longshore and Warehouse member, and my proudest life achievement, next to my kids, Laszlo and Omari, is the work I do as a political rep for my union. My local, ILWU Local 19, has more diverse racial demographics than King County and has more women in leadership than any other longshore local on the West Coast. It's an incredible institution to be a part of. I have afforded for years living in the city as a single mom because of my great union. Great healthcare benefits, and flexible schedule. I look forward to being able to retire with dignity because of my pension. We have built-in pay equity, on-the-job representation because of our union, no matter of skin color, gender expression, or education. There is no minimum educational requirement to be a longshoreman, and it's such a great job that many people who have advanced degrees choose it for their career path. In a time when the working class is under attack and it is becoming harder and harder for everyday Americans to afford to live, in this area especially, why would we risk any kind of harm to one of our region's top economic engines? The experts on the ground, the people that live and breathe maritime and spend a huge chunk of time in SODO, are telling you that this housing development in this location is a bad idea. Believe us. We know there is a housing crisis, and yes, the longshoremen are on board for more affordable housing in places that have supporting services. Let's fund the already in the pipeline housing projects. Our members and casual workforce need it just as much as everyone else. We are community-minded folks, and most of us would prefer to live in Seattle, but some commute from as far as Lacey or Cle Elum because the housing market is out of reach for most of us in Seattle. Even so, none of us would want to live on this site because we know firsthand the environment isn't suitable. Housing needs to be put in neighborhoods with schools, grocery stores, health clinics, parks, churches, and most important, fresh air. I would argue that hazards in the stadium transition overlay are much worse than those around our airports and will be astronomically expensive to mitigate. This begs the question, will this actually pencil out for affordable housing? If you add this housing development, it will surely gentrify more of the surrounding already endangered maritime industrial lands. Housing doesn't belong on major freight routes with diesel and bunker fuel exhaust inundating the air outside on top of nonstop noise pollution from the freight operations at Pier 46 and the rail yard. But the noise and the exhaust, even though greener solutions are being implemented, is a good thing. It's one of the only places in the city where we can still have this type of activity. We want and deserve a booming port in Seattle, a clear sign of a healthy economy. Washington is one of the most trade-dependent states in the country. We are famous for our quality exports of some of the best commodities in the world: wine, Christmas trees, salmon, logs, cherries, apples, beer, and French fries. This legislation puts our port's viability at stake, and with it threatens so many other sectors and family wage jobs. Please protect our rich trade economy, which I am so proud to be a part of. Please vote no on 120933 to protect good maritime and agricultural jobs in our town and across Washington State, the greatest place in the world. Please, City Council, let's partner together with the port. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Curt Nuccitelli, owner and president of Spirit Transport Systems, local trucking company that was founded in 2005 and operated for the first 9 years out of Georgetown, currently in Kent. I'm currently sitting board chairman of the Washington Trucking Association Intermodal Council, and I'm here not only to represent my company and local businesses, but businesses across Washington State. The legislation that's being proposed will have a significant impact, not only locally, like I said, but across Washington State and really throughout the country, and ultimately really impacts global trade. Keeping the Seattle Gateway a viable option for shippers across the world to utilize impacts families, blue-collar families that work in this area. I have worked with the hundreds of independent contractors, many that are first-generation immigrants from multiple countries throughout the world that rely on this area to be viable. So protecting our industrial lands is extremely important to maintain the trade routes, the truck routes that go between the railroads and the ports, local warehouses, transloading facilities, distribution centers. There's hundreds of businesses just locally here in this area, and then again, this impacts ones across the state. Trucking is a very diverse and competitive industry, so protecting the industrial lands or not protecting the industrial lands would have a great impact on the amount of congestion that we already struggle with here in this area. We have safety concerns already with bicycles, pedestrians, personal vehicles. It's a very difficult area to navigate on a daily basis as it stands now. Adding housing in this area would, in essence, funnel hundreds of cars, pedestrians, bicycles, hundreds more into this area. We already have a lot of safety concerns. You have big trucks that are running down these corridors and having all these additional pedestrians and vehicles would really be a safety concern. We have businesses such as McMillan Piper that has been in this area, was founded in 1969, I believe. You have CPAC Transport that has been in this area for decades, multiple warehouses, transloading facilities. And I just want to stress the point that, contractors that work with my company are blue-collar families. Some live in the area, some live in surrounding areas, but they depend on this area to be viable and efficient. We need efficient corridors for the trucks to be able to move through safely in order for this to be a viable gateway. And I just urge the council members not to adopt this proposed legislation, to even consider removing the 200-foot barrier that's required is for not to be, it's negligent at very least. So I just thank you for the time and appreciate everyone's consideration.
Thank you. This is generational wealth here, generational jobs. This is the difference. The Port of Seattle needs to be a viable port. We've been here for 100 years. We need to be here for the next 100 years. This is not just a decision that we should go back on and change the deal from 2023.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Bryan Peebles. I'm the export sales manager at Chelan Fresh. I'm also the fourth generation tree fruit grower in Eastern Washington out of 5 generations. One of the major aspects of growing tree fruit in the state of Washington over the years of apples, pears, and cherries has been our ability to grow fruit that it can be exported throughout the world. And one of the things that has allowed us to have that happen is the Port of Seattle and the Port of Tacoma. The gateway that the city of Seattle has for the rest of the Pacific Northwest and quite frankly the United States, it has a major impact on our ability to export apples, pears, and cherries to countries all over the world. I would just keep in mind as we take a look at jobs and what that looks like, the tree fruit industry specifically employs about 100,000 jobs in the state of Washington every year. Its economic impact is about $5 billion direct into the state. Its economic multiplier is close to $10 billion. And when you take 20 to 30% of our business that gets exported, it's about 20 to 25,000 containers that go out of the ports of Seattle and Tacoma each year. So there's a lot of dynamics that are happening in regards to this, which I appreciate, and so does the industry that I work for and the growers and the families that I work with in Eastern Washington. But I would just ask the city of Seattle and the people in Seattle to really continue to steward something that is unique in what it provides, not only to the people of Seattle and the port, but also to people around the state and the country. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm John Wolfe, CEO of the Northwest Seaport Alliance. The cargo activity at the Seaport Alliance, and these are the ports of Seattle and Tacoma, employs over 58,000 people in our region and hundreds of thousands of other jobs in our state who work in the goods movement industry. There's a direct relationship between the amount of cargo we process through our gateway and the number of people that are employed in this activity. So we feel a great responsibility to preserve and ideally grow the cargo volumes of the value and the valuable jobs associated with goods movement here in Seattle and Tacoma. There are always uncertainties in the global marketplace. I just returned from Asia, where I was visiting with some of our valued customers that call the Port of Seattle. And they recognize the uncertainty in the marketplace, yet they emphasized how important it is for us to protect our working waterfront. And so the experience that I bring to this industry is something that I know is critical for our success, that we protect these working waterfront terminals and the corridors that support the goods movement. We also live in a fiercely competitive marketplace. Our winning formula is to be recognized by our customers, importers and exporters, as a gateway that's easiest to do business with, that is consistently and reliably best in class in terms of service delivery. It's not easy because the port business is super competitive. Much of our cargo doesn't stay here in our region. It's bound for the upper Midwest or other inland marketplaces and can be shipped through any number of ports. The Alliance's cargo has been aggressively targeted by other port gateways. Since 2007, the NWSA Seaport Alliance, Port of Seattle-Tacoma market share of containerized cargo to the ports has been reduced significantly. When we lose cargo, again, we lose jobs. Good news. We've gained some of that market share back the last couple of years, and I believe we will continue to claw back container market share as we move forward. We're also optimistic about opportunities in the break bulk and non-containerized ro-ro cargoes. Just last year, we completed a major redevelopment effort at Terminal 5 in Seattle. Along with our terminal operator, we invested $500 million to create one of the best container terminals on the west coast of North America. In reopening Terminal 5, it has involved shifting container cargo from some of our other terminals in Seattle. Our vision involves utilizing all of our terminals in the Seattle harbor. That's Terminal 5, Terminal 18, Terminal 30, and Terminal 46 and 115. We need these terminals for cargo operations into perpetuity. Today, not all our terminals are regularly active in operations. However, these terminals are valuable assets to the statewide economy and must be protected. We don't need to look far in our rearview mirror to recognize the importance of maintaining our terminal infrastructure and access. Trade patterns are very cyclical, and during COVID, SODO never stopped. Operations remained in hyperdrive as essential goods were moved through our terminals to businesses and families across our region. The Alliance is actively working to secure new cargo tenants at Terminal 46 and Terminal 30. We're being very aggressive in our business development efforts, and unfortunately, reopening these conversations about housing and SODO makes securing new business much more difficult. Our customers need certainty on the waterfront. The future success of port operations depends on having efficient access to the terminals from highways and rail yards. Putting housing along high-volume freight corridors and the busiest intersections right around the corner from our marine terminals jeopardizes this cargo movement and the jobs they generate. I'll now pass the mic back to Commissioner Hasegawa. Thank you.
Well, thank you to my fellow speakers, the people who are behind me that care so deeply about the communities that they're from and live in, and our statewide economy. You know, in reflecting on this moment, I feel compelled to speak to one of the most vexing issues on this point: housing. People deserve housing and access to the neighborhood amenities that SODO lacks, like libraries, schools, grocery stores, and green spaces. To think about the experience of living at the doorstep of one of the busiest ports of the country, it would mean living right next to the noise pollution from the trucks, heavy machinery, train whistles, the glare from industrial lights. And people who live in industrial areas experience significant health and quality of life impacts, like air pollution from industrial operations and water pollution. As Port Commissioner, I've spent countless hours hearing from residents living in the Duwamish Valley and South King County about their hardship and our responsibility to remediate. People living near industry and transportation hubs suffer disparate health impacts, like higher incidence of cancer, asthma, low birth weight, and infant mortality. Residential areas in Seattle where people already live next to industrial operations experience a lower average life expectancy by 13 years. We should simply accept that as blatant inequity. So let's be clear. The proposed legislation is not about solving our affordability crisis or housing issues for more of our neighbors. Seattleites deserve better. And marking this area for affordable housing is reminiscent of redlining. And we're still feeling the devastating impacts of the systemic practices nearly a century after they were implemented. All people deserve better. We deserve better. All people deserve housing in vibrant neighborhoods with public transit, neighborhood schools. All people deserve an economy that's competitive and makes the smartest investments possible in cutting-edge clean technology. All people deserve family-wage jobs that treat them with dignity and not as pawns in politics. All people deserve consistent, thoughtful public policy that doesn't make them sacrifice their time, effort, and energy to make their voices heard when an out-of-state billionaire wants a new property. Public policy should work for all of us. When it benefits just one, it's called privilege. Our partners show up, work hard, and stick to their word. We're asking that the City Council sticks to theirs. We agreed to a deal in 2023, and we urge you to reject this harmful legislation and honor what we've already agreed upon to let Seattle get back to work. Thank you.